The story follows Takumi Aruma, who is accidentally summoned to Midgard, appearing before the goddess Lady Nolan. This angelic figure immediately apologizes, explaining that the summoning spell randomly selects people from Earth who fit a certain below-average loser criteria, but Takumi was actually supposed to be excluded since his life was going well. However, due to an error caused by the reckless actions of the Holy Sidonian Empire, he got dragged in along with the others. Since he was never meant to be summoned, Nolan brought him to her directly, while the other summoned individuals were sent to Sidonia. Takumi asks if he can simply be sent back to Earth, but Nolan informs him that it's impossible. The goddess is angered as she want to add a new patch to this, but it's too late. She was so furious with Sidonia for using the forbidden summoning spell that she immediately patched it out of this world's magic laws, permanently preventing interdimensional travel. As an unfortunate side effect, Takumi also technically died in the process as he has no body. Realizing he's now a disembodied ghost, he starts panicking. But Nolan reassures him that she has a solution. While she can't return him to Earth, she can grant him a new body and make him a citizen of this world. As an apology for her role in this mess, she also offers him a blessing to make his new life easier, promising to give him a super good deal on it with her help, as he'll be sent to one of those fantasy worlds Earthlings like. But the boy has anxiety and hates the idea of this. The goddess is unbothered, and Nolan instructs him to check his status screen. Upon doing so, Takumi discovers that Nolan plans to give him a 17-year-old body, even though he was originally 40. When he questions it, Nolan brushes it off as an unimportant detail and instead tells him to choose a job. The main options are combat-related roles like swordsman, knight, or hunter, but there are also production-based jobs. Since Takumi isn't fond of fighting, he picks a production job, with the goddess finding this lame. Nolan grants him the job, Pod throws in several additional blessings, and then sends him off, completely forgetting to give him a tutorial. Takumi crash lands in a forest, and after recovering, checks his reflection in a river, confirming that he now has a younger body, with the blessing of the goddess. He deems that his stats are too good and conceals them. Determined to make the best of his new life, he searches the bag Nolan left with him, finding some food and money. Checking his status screen again, he realizes Nolan really stacked him with useful skills, including elemental magic. Testing it out, he successfully casts a water ball on his first try, then experiments with other elements. While traveling, Takumi stumbles upon a piece of Trent wood, a rare material used for crafting weapons, and decides to test his modeling skill by making a spear. Finding a variety of useful plants nearby, he gathers them, but soon realizes he can't carry them all. Fortunately, he remembers he has an item box skill allowing him to store everything effortlessly, with this being his new paradise. Just then, he hears a scream. A little girl bursts out of the bushes, pleading for help as a massive horned rabbit chases her. The rabbit charges at Takumi, and in a panic, he blindly thrusts his spear, accidentally killing it with a lucky strike. Shocked by his unexpected victory, he assumes it must be due to Nolan's blessing, though in reality, it was pure luck. As a result of the fight, he gains the warrior job title, much to his dismay, since he wanted to avoid combat. However, his priority is checking on the girl, who introduces herself as Molly. She explains that she was picking herbs but wandered too far from her village and got attacked. Hearing about a nearby village, Takumi eagerly asks if he can go with her. Molly agrees and also suggests he take the rabbit's corpse, as its meat is valuable. As he stores it in his item box, he realizes he just revealed his skill to Molly, something he had planned to keep secret. Meanwhile, the other summoned individuals, being the below-average losers, arrive in the Holy Sidonian Empire, completely disoriented. As they struggle to understand their situation, a woman approaches, addressing them as heroes. She introduces herself as the first Empress Elizabeth of Sidonia, explaining that they were summoned to save this world. However, the group immediately finds her suspicious. One of them, Akane, has a unique skill granted by Nolan called Revelation, which allows her to instinctively recognize the truth. Her gut tells her that Elizabeth is deceitful and not to be trusted. Back with Takumi, he arrives at Molly's village, where her parents, Bunga and Martha, thank him for saving their daughter. They welcome him but inform him that the village has no inn for him to stay in, how him to stay ever. They offer to build him a house instead. As the villagers gather to start construction, Takumi decides to help by using his earth magic to prepare the foundation. It's the first time he's used magic on such a large scale, and he nearly passes out from mana depletion. The villagers are impressed by his abilities, and by the next morning his house is completed. Using his various crafting skills, Takumi makes furniture for himself and decides to test his alchemy abilities next. He obtains ores from the village blacksmith, Boron, and successfully extracts iron ingots using alchemy, though it drains a huge amount of his mana. Excited by his progress in alchemy, he keeps going, nearly passing out again. Molly later finds him collapsed on the floor, looking completely drained. Luckily, Bunga and Martha give him a recovery potion, saving him from serious harm. But Martha gives him a good lecture. They make him promise not to overwork himself, with the mother and daughter coming by to watch him. He creates iron, gold, lead, tungsten, titanium, and tin, being really fascinated by rocks. Over time, Takumi refines his blacksmithing skills, creating weapons and tools. Once his blacksmithing level reaches 40, he wants a new challenge, so he goes to ask Bunga about herbs and shifts focus to potion making. Borrowing a basic potion from Bunga as a template, he uses herbs he collected to create his own version, bringing back childhood memories. His potion appears even more vibrant and contains magic, but he's unsure if it's safe. To test it, he decides to build poison resistance by ingesting questionable substances until he's on the brink of death, then using healing magic to recover. His reckless method pays off, granting him the purification skill, which will undoubtedly be useful in the future. Soon, an armored boar greets him, forcing him to defend himself. He now has a little experience, but the boar is too strong, easily destroying his weapons. So, Takumi shifts tactics to magic, starting with Wind Cutter, then Rock Ball, but the boar doesn't even feel it. While stepping back in fear, he notices an unknown poison spider, but of course, it loses. On the brink of death, Takumi makes a bold play, jumping over the head of the beast and using his alchemy decomposition. The move is a one-hit KO. Taking pity on the spider, he heals its injuries, unknowingly taming it. He names it Maple, and the spider, now able to speak telepathically, bonds with him. Back in town, the people are impressed by the boar, but terrified of the big spider. The village holds a feast in his honor, as it has never been better. Meanwhile, the goddess keeps a close eye on Takumi. Another goddess walks up to her, assuming she has a big plan for the boy. One morning, Takumi yells at Maple, who's trying to look away. When he wakes up, he finds himself tied up in bed. He immediately realizes that Maple is responsible. She apologizes, admitting that she's been feeling lonely since he's been so busy lately and just wanted his attention. Recognizing that he's been too caught up in work to spend quality time with her, Takumi decides to take the day off to play with Maple, which makes her incredibly happy. Just then, Martha enters with lunch for Takumi. Having no context, she assumes Takumi is about to be eaten. However, Takumi reassures her that it's not what it looks like. While Martha believes him, she can't help but notice the high-quality silk Maple has produced and immediately starts scheming to collect as much of it as possible. Later that day, she successfully creates a spider silk shirt, and the women in the village are enamored by its luxurious texture. Takumi, unaware of how valuable spider silk is, learns from the villagers that it's typically a luxury only nobles can afford. Martha then asks Maple to produce more silk, but since Maple can't understand the language, Martha is determined to get her silk one way or another. Eventually, Maple agrees, though it means she won't be able to spend as much time with Takumi. While a bit disappointed, Takumi acknowledges that he still has plenty to do. It has been about a month since Takumi first arrived in the village, and he plans to head to the city soon to further his alchemy studies. However, he finds it difficult to say goodbye after growing so close to the villagers. Before leaving, he visits Boron at the forge to continue his blacksmithing training. Together, they craft a perfectly fitting chest plate and a pair of steel-toe boots. Boron notes that the boots will be useful for combat, though Takumi insists he has no intention of fighting, as he only wants to pursue alchemy. But Boron reminds him that monsters won't care about his career choices. Soon after, Bunga arrives, expressing sadness about Takumi's departure, but understanding that moving to the city is the best way for him to expand his business. Since a trader from Bolton will be visiting the village in a few days, Bunga arranges for Takumi to travel with him. As Takumi prepares for his journey, he encounters Martha, who is discarding the entrails of a horned rabbit that Bunga caught. She explains that while the meat is edible, it requires proper processing to remove diseases and parasites, something the village lacks the equipment for. However, Takumi purifies the meat using his magic, making it safe to eat. Martha is grateful, but shocked to discover he can use light magic. This skill could make him rich, but she warns him not to reveal this ability outside the village, as very few people possess it, and it could attract unwanted attention. Takumi takes her warning seriously, but intends to improve the village before leaving. Using earth magic, he constructs a brick wall for defense instead of the wooden fence, installs a water pump, and adds other amenities. By the time he finishes, the village looks completely transformed. When the merchant arrives, he barely recognizes the place. Bunga greets the merchant, Popek, and after completing their trade, Takumi joins them to set off for Bolton. Popek, having heard a lot about Takumi, introduces himself. The villagers gather to say their goodbyes, and before leaving, Takumi gifts Bunga a potion, mentioning that he has left around 100 more at his house in case of emergencies. Popek, upon seeing the potion, is stunned by its quality and asks to examine it closely, noting that it looks like a prime Gatorade glacier freeze. The villagers bid Takumi farewell, assuring him he will always be welcome. Before he departs, Martha gives him an outfit made from maple silk, making him look dripped out, which deeply touches him. Takumi was truly loved by this community as he helped everyone. With one final thank you, Takumi gets into the carriage and leaves for Bolton. During the journey, the others in the carriage note how much the villagers seem to love Takumi, making his farewell an emotional one. Traveling with him are members of a C-rank party called Lion Fang, Heath, a blonde swordsman, Riel, a red-haired archer, and Booger, a gloomy-looking warrior. As they ride, Riel notices Takumi holding his bag tightly and asks if it contains something valuable. Takumi casually mentions that his pet killer spider, Maple, is inside. The group is stunned that he managed to tame such a dangerous creature. Riel, intrigued, asks to see her, but his creepy demeanor unsettles Maple, leading her to headbutt him in the face. Takumi apologizes, but the others assure him that Riel deserved it. Meanwhile, Maple appears to have taken a liking to Booger, treating him like her father, while remaining indifferent to Heath. As the journey continues, Popek pulls Takumi aside to discuss the potions he saw earlier. He inquires if Takumi has more for sale, expressing interest in buying them. Before they can proceed, the carriage comes to a sudden halt. A horde of goblins is blocking the road, preparing for an attack. While this is bad news for Takumi and Popek, the Lion Fang members are excited, eager for some action. They instruct Takumi to stay back as they engage the enemies. Popek can never get used to this life as a merchant, with Takumi not envying the man. With Riel taking down goblins from a distance using his bow, and Booger and Heath handling the rest with brute force, the battle is quickly over. Afterward, they gather magic stones from the goblins' bodies. Maple, having observed their performance, grows fond of Booger, develops a dislike for Riel, and remains indifferent to Heath. After 3 days of travel, the group finally arrives in Bolton, Kingdom of Barkula. The Lion Fang members head to the Adventurers Guild to report the success of their escort mission, and Takumi accompanies them since he needs to register in order to stay in the city. Ideally, he would prefer to register with the Alchemist Guild, but since there isn't one in Bolton, he has no choice but to become an adventurer. The receptionist, Hans, informs him that his guild card will serve as identification and will remain valid as long as he completes at least one quest per month. Takumi also registers Maple as his pet. With his registration complete, Takumi visits Popek's trading company to negotiate a deal for his potions. He has around 103 high-quality potions, and Popek offers to buy them at premium prices, 10 silver coins each for healing and stamina potions, and 50 silver coins for mana potions. Doing the math, Takumi realizes he will make over 7 million yen from the transaction. Though it seems like an absurd amount, Popek assures him that he could earn even more if he builds a reputation as a producer. Since Takumi plans to establish himself in Bolton, Popek advises him to get a house with an attached workshop for convenience. Takumi, having not considered his living arrangements, is grateful for the suggestion. Popek enlists his assistant Thomas to help Takumi find an affordable property. However, when Takumi sees the house, he is shocked. It's more of a mansion. He assumes it's far beyond his budget, but Thomas assures him it's reasonably priced and, most importantly, not haunted. The presence of a well-equipped workshop convinces Takumi to go through with the purchase, and he agrees to buy the mansion. Thomas begins the paperwork, ensuring Takumi can move in as soon as the next day. As they walk through the city, Takumi notices a foul smell in the air. Thomas explains that it's coming from the sewers. While the wealthy use magical purifiers to keep their waste clean, the main city sewers lack such technology. Since magical purifiers are rare artifacts found only in ancient ruins and dungeons, they are too expensive to implement citywide. Instead, priests are occasionally hired to cleanse the sewers manually, but the problem persists. Determined to find a solution, Takumi decides that his first DIY project in Bolton will be tackling the city's sanitation issue. Using clay purchased from the Popek company, he crafts a toilet, heating it and then amplifying the temperature, using space-time magic like it's Naruto. However, he overexerts himself and burns through all his mana, forcing him to chug his cherry Gatorade to recover. Just as he celebrates by hugging his toilet, he hears a scream from Popek. But instead of being mad, Popek feels bliss. The silk is so comfortable on his broke boy body. One of Popek's attendants stumbles into the bathroom in a moment so absurd it's unclear if it's just bad manners or forced plot progression. Takumi, in a moment of sheer stupidity, explains the toilet's function but accidentally reveals that he can use light magic. Realizing his mistake, he panics and begs Popek to keep it a secret. However, the greedy merchant only hears the sound of an exclusive contract. Recognizing that he needs more manpower to mass-produce his invention, Takumi begins considering the idea of buying a servant. Popek takes Takumi to the place, and the two make it to the garden, where Takumi is entranced by a blonde elf woman who catches him staring. Popek introduces Takumi to Mulan, the owner of Slide Trading Company, and informs her that Takumi is interested in purchasing a servant. However, he also mentions that Takumi is reluctant about the idea. Curious about his hesitation, Mulan asks for an explanation. Takumi explains that in his homeland, this practice was abolished long ago, making the idea uncomfortable for him. Understanding his concerns, Mulan assures him that in this nation, employees have certain rights and privileges. She explains that serf contracts require owners to provide food, clothing, and shelter, while employees commit to fulfilling their duties. Additionally, contracts prevent both parties from inflicting lethal harm on each other. Hearing this, Takumi is relieved, as it means the arrangement functions more like a job with specific terms. Mulan further explains the different types of contracts. Some are for debt repayment, others are lifelong contracts taken by criminals or war captives, while many are victims of bandits. Popek suggests a war soldier for Takumi, as they cannot be released without their master's consent, and Mulan could arrange this. She inquires why Takumi needs such restrictions, and though Popek praises Takumi's production talents and fears his secrets being stolen, Mulan wants to hear Takumi's reasoning directly. Takumi explains that as a producer, he prefers to focus on his work, but also has to fulfill adventurer guild quests. Since he owns a mansion, he needs help managing it, and due to his special abilities, he wants to ensure his servant keeps his secrets. Moreover, since he personally gathers ingredients for his work, he needs a capable fighter to accompany him. While Mulan acknowledges his lack of ill intent, she refuses to allow a single person to handle both housework and combat, insisting he purchase 2 separate employees instead. She then introduces Maria, a woman trained in reading, writing, mathematics, and housekeeping since childhood. Takumi tells her how many bedrooms and bathrooms he has, and Maria confidently states she can manage a mansion alone. Takumi is impressed but wonders why no one has purchased her before, as he finds her beautiful and competent. Embarrassed by his compliment on her skills and appearance, Maria clarifies that she is strictly a housekeeper and will not perform any additional duties. Takumi, confused by her insistence, assures her that he only expects household tasks. Maria suddenly blurts out that she will not sleep with him, leaving Takumi flustered. However, he reassures her that he only seeks a housekeeper, not a concubine. Satisfied, Maria agrees to the contract. With Maria's agreement settled, Mulan prepares the contract but informs Takumi that she lacks a suitable battle servant. Maria immediately calls her out, mentioning Sophia, but Mulan dismisses her and sends her away to pack. Takumi, intrigued, asks about Sophia, and Mulan reluctantly admits she exists but is not a good fit due to numerous issues. When Takumi insists on meeting her, Mulan introduces him to Sophia, who recognizes him from earlier. Mulan reveals that Sophia was captured during a war between the Kingdom of Triara and the Kingdom of Izure over 50 years ago. Takumi is shocked to learn that Sophia, an elf, is over 50 years old. Mulan explains that elves have long lifespans, but Sophia's situation is difficult. She has a scarred ear, limited movement in her right hand and left leg, and has lost her elemental magic, likely due to a curse. These factors make her an unlikely candidate for a battle servant. Still, Takumi wants to assess her abilities himself, so he asks for a moment alone with her. He examines her status using appraisal despite his reservations about doing so suddenly as he grabs her face. To his surprise, her stats are extraordinarily high, and though her injuries and curse limit her, if he can heal her, she would be an ideal combat partner. When Mulan returns, Takumi declares his decision to take Sophia. She protests, listing her flaws, but Takumi insists he can fix them. Amused by his confidence, Mulan agrees to the arrangement. After finalizing the contract, Mulan performs a magical binding, and after chanting some lyrics, the contract is complete, making Maria and Sophia officially Takumi's servants. Maria expresses gratitude and promises to do her best, as does Sophia. Takumi pleasantly greets them back, but Sophia scolds him for being so polite to his servants. Feeling awkward, he brushes it off, while the shop owner is happy that the girls are going to a nice home. The trio then returns to Takumi's mansion, where his pet killer spider, Maple, excitedly jumps out to greet him. Alarmed, Sophia instinctively prepares to attack, but Takumi quickly explains that Maple is his pet. Though skeptical, Maria and Sophia decide to accept it. Takumi shows them to their rooms, offering Sophia one and Maria the adjacent one. Both are surprised by his generosity, as the rooms are extremely luxurious, but he insists that he has no use for them himself. He also informs them of a large bath they can use anytime, though they feel like he, as the master, should go first. He dismisses their concerns, stating that he's wealthy and leaves them to settle in. Later, as the two bathe, Maria expresses relief that Takumi also chose Sophia, believing Mulan would never have let her leave otherwise. Maria notes that for 50 years, Mulan rejected all offers for Sophia, suggesting she must have seen something in Takumi. While Sophia admits Takumi seems kind, she remains wary, having noticed that his records were blank, with no information about his hometown or lineage. She keeps this to herself, suspecting he has secrets. After their bath, they find that Takumi has already prepared dinner. Maria, feeling useless since household chores are her job, is disheartened. Takumi reassures her that he only wanted to make her first day easier and promises to leave the rest of the chores to her from now on. When he invites them to eat together, Sophia hesitates, unused to dining with a master. Takumi acknowledges that his behavior is unusual for an owner, but urges her not to dwell on tradition. He also dislikes being called master and asks them to use his name instead. Maria agrees, though Sophia remains unsure. The next day, Takumi visits Popek's trading company to collect a package. Popek cautions him to handle it carefully. On his way back, Takumi notices a nearby church and decides to stop inside to pray to Nolan, thanking her for the skills she granted him. However, he also questions why she has such a strong dislike for the Holy Empire of Sidonia. Suddenly, Nolan appears before him, startling him. She explains that she heard his prayer and brought him to her realm for a conversation. In response to his question, she reveals that Sidonia does not follow her true will. There are two major religions in the world, the Church of Creation, which genuinely worships her, and the Church of Divine Light, which acts independently. Sidonia's empire has conducted crusades to spread its faith by force, but Nolan chose not to intervene. She then grabs his attention to tell him that his tutorial mode is almost over. Takumi doesn't understand, and she reminds him of all the people he's interacted with so far, as they've all been helpful or convinced by him. This is because of her, as she selected people to fit him, but now that ends, as the people he runs into in the future will most likely want to do harm to him, or at least disagree with his morals. She tells him that the blessing will stay on him, but his life will be different, so he should enjoy what he has. Meanwhile, the villains of the story, the Sidonia Empire, are plotting a scheme with their summoned heroes. As they report the status to the king, the attendant says that they were hard to persuade at first, but Lady Elizabeth made sure they'd listen to her. At that time, the boy who looks like a main character, Akira, is practicing swordsmanship with a general. Yamato is having flashbacks of high school when he was the judo club's ace, but he suffered a humiliating loss to a first-year prodigy. The only one not moved to train hard was Akane, with Elizabeth having a tough time trying to get her to practice. Akane sees this as nothing but violence, but Elizabeth says this is what's needed to save the world, which is what most isekai say. Akira interrupts to show his unwavering love for Akane, vowing to protect her. Akira can't help but think Elizabeth is dangerous, as he can already see her manipulating Akira's feelings. Takumi comes back home and is tackled by Maple, dropping his items. Sophia goes to pick them up, but Takumi puts all the stuff in his item box. Takumi makes the excuse that he's working late tonight, so he tells them to eat dinner without him. Sophia notices the magic paper and knows he's hiding something, so she sneaks to his workshop. Peeking inside, she sees him working, cutting his arm. The action scares her, and he says he has something planned for Maria. Worried for her friend, Sophia steps in and tackles him, heavily tired, warning him she'll stop him if he does anything to Maria. She collapses, and he checks her status to see the problem, then heals her left hand with his light magic. He's able to see that she's injured because of the curse placed on her. Taking her back to her room, Maria confirms this is the case, as she's only grown weaker and is barely able to walk around the house. Takumi decides it's time to heal her completely, so summoning a magic circle, he performs Dispel. But it's not enough, so he performs an additional extra heal. Healing her completely, her ear is restored. When she wakes up, she feels lighter than she ever has. Maria then shows her what the master did for her, and she knows that she was wrong about him. She thanks him, feeling guilty, and he clarifies what he needed Maria for. He explains that the girl threw away some of his material he was using, so he had to get more. She's still hesitant to trust him, so she asks him why he did all this, and he tells her it was to take care of her. She's shocked and cries, then promises herself to him for as long as she's alive. The goddess watches on, happy, but then checks in on the other heroes and emotionlessly says that Midgard will be attacked in roughly 1 year from now. The story continues the next morning as Takumi heads to the library, hoping to find information on alchemy. However, he quickly realizes that the entire library only contains 4 books on the subject. Perplexed, he wonders why alchemy isn't more widespread when it seems so simple. In reality, though, it's quite complex. Every available alchemy text is written in an ancient language. The only reason Takumi can understand them is thanks to Nolan's blessing, which grants him the ability to comprehend every language in this world. When he gets home, Takumi is eating lunch as Maria gushes over seeing him with Lady Sophia, making it look like a love proposal. Later in the day, Takumi, Maria, and Sophia finish polishing and boxing a large number of toilets. Although there are still many more to go, their progress is steady, and Takumi feels he can take a break from toilet making for now. Since he won't be working on that anymore, Maria asks what his next plan is. Takumi explains that he intends to embark on some journeys soon, primarily to search for new alchemy ingredients, eat unique meals, and travel whenever he wants. He already plans to take Sophia as his bodyguard, meaning he'll need Maria to stay behind and look after the house. However, Maria isn't thrilled about being left behind while the two have an adventure and asks if she can come along. Takumi initially refuses, pointing out the dangers involved and reminding her that he hired her as a maid to maintain the mansion. Maria compares it to being a toilet left in the desert. While Maria understands his reasoning, the thought of being left alone makes her feel lonely, so she pleads with him to reconsider. Takumi doesn't want to abandon Maria, but before making a decision, he decides to check her combat skills. He grabs Maria's face, shocking Sophia and making Maria blush, and uses his appraisal skill to examine her stats. To his surprise, she is quite capable, not overpowered, but certainly strong enough to be a battle maid. With that in mind, Takumi agrees to let her join the journey as long as she's confident in her abilities. Sophia offers to train Maria in combat and magic to ensure she's ready, and Takumi, seeing the benefits, asks Sophia to train him as well. Since Maria will be joining them, Takumi decides it's time to craft equipment for everyone. He asks Sophia what kind of weapon she'd like, and without hesitation, she lists an entire arsenal expected from an experienced warrior. Maria, on the other hand, has little knowledge of weaponry, but mentions she received some short sword training from Mulan. She requests battle knives, which Sophia points out may not be ideal due to their short reach, suggesting she also carry a spear. Maria isn't familiar with spear combat, so Sophia offers to give her a crash course while Takumi works on crafting the weapons, making it look like the two are in gym class. Takumi forges the blades quickly, but the process drains a significant amount of his mana, forcing him to drink a potion to recover. He gives them their own unique designs. Sophia's weapon gets a wing motif, while Maria's features a flame pattern. Afterward, he enchants the weapons with attack boosting and auto repair effects to minimize maintenance. Once the blades are complete, he moves on to crafting the handles. Since Maria's knives require a sheath, Takumi imagines how they'd look strapped to her thighs. Man of culture sighed, nearly making him pass out. At that moment, Maria feels a disturbance in the force as her thighs sense imminent danger to armor, requiring their exact measurements. Rather than taking them directly, he pulls out two life-size dolls of Maria and Sophia that he had previously crafted using his Appraisal EX skill, though he refuses to explain why he made them. He finds their bust sizes quite scandalous. He constructs the armor using maple silk and the hide of an armored boar, letting his taste in clothing run wild. After multiple redesigns over several days, he presents the final armor to Maria and Sophia, both of whom are surprised at how well it fits, despite never giving him their measurements. Maple blurts out that he has dolls of them, but before they can question this, Takumi quickly changes the subject and asks how they feel about their new weapons. Both are pleased, with Sophia praising the balance of her sword and Maria appreciating the precision of her knives. Takumi, happy to have his battle-made fantasy fulfilled, just hopes Maria doesn't notice. Takumi also crafts magic-enhancing rings for them, though Maria and Sophia feel guilty for making him go through so much trouble. Takumi reassures them, saying that while the process was exhausting, it helped him level up his ice and lightning magic, making it worthwhile. With their equipment ready, the group heads to the Adventurers Guild so that Maria and Sophia can register. As first-timers, they receive the lowest rank, H. While at the guild, the receptionist reminds Takumi that he needs to complete at least one quest to maintain his adventurer status. Looking at the quest board, he hopes to find something easy, but Sophia encourages him to take on a higher difficulty quest to increase his rank. At that moment, a group of arrogant D-rank adventurers tries to lure Sophia and Maria away from Takumi. Overhearing Takumi's H-rank status, they attempt to intimidate him, assuming he's weak. They also make disrespectful comments about Maria and Sophia. Although Maria is ready to put them in their place, Takumi stops her, deciding to handle it himself. He's scared, but after they made a pass at his friends, he refuses to back down. One of the D-rank adventurers, a pot-bellied man, throws a punch at Takumi, who doesn't dodge. Instead, the attacker breaks his own hand on impact, making it look like a used-up bottle of toothpaste. The commotion attracts the attention of the guildmaster, Barak, who demands an explanation. At first, he suspects Takumi of wrongdoing, as he is unharmed while the other man is injured. However, Maria and the receptionist vouch for Takumi, explaining that he simply stood there while the other guy punched him. Curious about how this happened, Barak asks Takumi for details. Although hesitant to reveal his abilities, Takumi ultimately explains that he used his item box to retrieve a piece of charcoal, coated his upper body with it, and then converted it into diamond, making his defense impenetrable. Impressed, the guildmaster suggests promoting Takumi to D rank immediately to prevent similar altercations in the future, noting that the men only acted out because he had pretty women by his side. Takumi, however, insists that an automatic promotion would be unfair. Instead, he agrees to complete a series of difficult quests to prove his abilities. Sophia and Maria support the idea, and they accept a quest to exterminate a band of goblins and kobolds while gathering medicinal herbs. Venturing into the forest, Maple scouts ahead and warns them of 4 goblins nearby. Sophia takes the lead, swiftly cutting down 2 of them. The remaining 2 are caught in Maple's web, allowing Maria and Takumi to finish them off. Takumi is pleased with their teamwork, but notices an unusually high number of monsters in the area. Having already slain nearly 100, Sophia suspects a nearby monster encampment, likely led by a goblin general, a C-rank monster that would typically require 5 D-rank parties to defeat. Despite the challenge, she believes their combined abilities give them a solid chance of victory. Takumi is unsure but decides to trust his teammates. However, Maple suddenly informs him that she is about to evolve and will be unable to fight. Understanding, Takumi places her in a pocket dimension to rest, something that surprises Maria and Sophia, who demand to know when he learned such a skill. Playing it off casually, Takumi refocuses on the mission, warning that they'll have less support without Maple. Upon reaching the goblin camp, Sophia counts around 400 enemies. Rather than engaging in direct combat, they opt to unleash their strongest magic spells, wiping out the majority of the goblins in one coordinated attack. The battle isn't over yet, but they have the advantage. Suddenly, the goblin general arrives. Sophia takes on the grunts, leaving Takumi to face the general alone. He's scared, but his intuition and physical enhancements level up, allowing him to block the swipe of its sword. While defending, he manages to use a fire spell. By the end of the day, the 3 are exhausted but collect a large haul, causing another commotion and drawing the attention of the guildmaster again. Just as he's about to yell at them, Maple pushes him aside to show off her new Spider-Girl transformation, looking like she came straight out of a spider isekai. Now able to talk, she excitedly announces that she's wanted to do this for a long time. Later, Maria visits Takumi in his office to request money for cloth. Takumi, confused, points out that Maple can just provide silk, but Maria blushes, finding it wasteful for making underwear. She then sketches what she needs, which looks like a loincloth. Takumi, baffled, draws what proper underwear should look like. His drawing is so provocative and forward that Maria eagerly wants a pair. Popek soon arrives with a message from the Lord of Bolton, Marquis Godwin, who wants to meet Takumi, specifically because he's amazed by the toilets. During their meeting at the castle, Godwin addresses him as Mystery Ruma, recognizing his invention as a breakthrough in preventing disease. To Takumi's shock, the Marquis even bows to him, though Takumi feels such respect is unnecessary for a commoner. When they return home, Maple proudly shows off the new sets of panties. Takumi gives a stern expression and tells them to put them on, only to immediately apologize as it sounds inappropriate. The girls, however, blush and teasingly ask if he'd like them to wear them around the house. Embarrassed, he quickly leaves, prompting Maria to call him a wuss. Sophia scolds her, but when asked about her own thoughts, she also calls him a coward. Takumi finishes explaining to the girls that the refrigerators will keep food fresh by preventing spoilage. They are thrilled to feel the cool air coming from the appliance. To create the fridges, Takumi synthesized iron, chromium, and nickel into stainless steel and embedded a magical cooling device. Despite this, Maria is grateful since she can now cook with fresh ingredients whenever she wants. Takumi plans to give one fridge to Maria while sending the other two to Papik for sale. Once that's taken care of, he intends to move on to his next project. When Sophia asks if he's building something new, Takumi clarifies that he wants to make adjustments to their equipment. Since their battle with the goblins, he has been thinking about improving their gear, especially since they will be traveling soon. His goal is to forge a new set using mithril and adamantite. He heads to the guild to ask Hans if any blacksmiths can work with these rare metals, but there are very few skilled enough. Hans suggests that only the dwarves of Enstal might be capable, but they are too far away for Takumi to visit. Just as Takumi resigns himself to the difficulty of finding a blacksmith, Hans mentions a city called Horus, near the kingdom of Barcula. Takumi could mine mithril and adamantite there, but entry into the mines is restricted to members of the blacksmith guild. Luckily, Hans hints at a workaround. If Takumi were to accept a quest to exterminate monsters in the mines, he could coincidentally come across some mithril along the way. This would help him meet his quota while also getting him what he wants. The guildmaster then appears and offers Takumi the perfect quest. The guild is running low on treant wood, which is crucial with winter approaching, and asks Takumi to collect some, as most adventurers are busy hunting black buffalo. Since trants are found near the Horus mines, it's a convenient opportunity. As he also has space-time ninjutsu, it should be a breeze. Takumi feels pressured and accepts. Additionally, the guildmaster requests Takumi escort someone on his way there, which sounds like more work than Takumi anticipated. He questions why him, as he has never done a mission like this before, not to mention why the Lion Fang group can't handle the escort, but the guildmaster explains they are occupied with another mission, leaving Takumi as the only option. Takumi agrees but asks Hans about the travel time. By horse-drawn carriage, it would take 7 days, but using a monster horse would cut it to 4. Takumi likes the idea and asks for one, but Riel arrives with bad news. All the monster horses are currently in use by Lion Fang. Riel, having returned from a quest to deliver a black buffalo before it spoiled, decides to stay in town for the night. The guild master is still a task driver, making him work. Takumi invites him to his home to rest and take a bath. Riel accepts, hearing a bath. However, Takumi has errands to run first, and Riel insists on accompanying him. They visit Popek's company, where Takumi convinces Popek to lend him 2 monster horses in exchange for some of the ores he finds in Horus. Popek also loves the refrigerator Takumi previously delivered and requests more once he returns from his mining trip. Meanwhile, back at Takumi's mansion, Sophia starts to worry about his late return, as she wants to be with him next time. On their way home, Takumi apologizes to Riel for dragging him along, but Riel doesn't mind, though he admits it sucks not finding a blacksmith. Suddenly, he senses a hostile presence. Realizing he's no match for the threat, he grabs Takumi's hand and runs. However, the assailant quickly catches up and kicks Riel in the face. It's Sophia. She assumes Riel is trying to kidnap Takumi and prepares to strike him down. Before she can, Takumi steps in to clarify the situation. Realizing her mistake, Sophia sincerely apologizes to Riel Riel, who forgives her but now has a lot of questions for Takumi. Riel's confusion only grows when they reach Takumi's house and he sees more women living there. Takumi explains that he hired Sophia and Maria as a maid and a bodyguard, and that Maple evolved into her current form. Excited to see Maple again, Riel is dismayed when she still dislikes him. Riel laments his single status, especially since his friends Heath and Bogar are both married, while even Takumi appears to have 2 girlfriends. However, Takumi corrects him, saying he isn't dating Sophia or Maria. Seizing the opportunity, Riel asks Sophia out, only to be instantly rejected, as she says her heart and body belong to Takumi. Maria also turns him down, stating that she wants to live by Takumi's side, leaving Riel defeated. Later, while Riel sulks in the bath, Takumi discusses his upcoming mission with Sophia and Maria. Sophia supports the idea since Traint wood is valuable and everyone else agrees, so Takumi sets their departure in 3 days. The next morning, Riel leaves to rejoin Lion Fang. With his departure, Takumi begins working on new equipment for their Traint hunt. He creates a magic-draining tungsten carbide sword, but it ends up being too powerful to control. Using his alchemy skill, he struggles to break it down, but eventually manages to forge 2 separate blades that sap mana from anyone they cut. The process leaves him completely drained, but he's satisfied with the results. 3 days later, Takumi and his group collect the carriage from Popek, and their escort, the blacksmith Digambo, is already waiting. On their journey, they stop at a forest to hunt Traints. The Horus branch just then sends an urgent message about a monster in the Forest of Death. Meanwhile, Popek is having a meeting with one of the attendants for the king. The two discuss the implementation of toilets and their impact on the royal capital, but unfortunately, they're unable to spread them to the Holy Empire of Cydonia. At the same time, Akira and Yamato are sparring with the main general. Yamato feels like he's redeeming himself as the other soldiers hype up their progress. Takumi stops the carriage and puts a protective barrier around the blacksmith while they hunt. Sophia warns them to stay focused on the magic around them, as the trees in the forest are not all the same. She then points to a camouflaged monster among the trees, a Traint. The tree attacks with spikes from underground and can also shoot magic projectiles. Takumi swiftly cuts it down with backup from Maria and Sophia. However, there are still many more to eliminate as they surround them. Maple is happy to see such a big haul, so Sophia suggests using magic, which proves effective. They soon encounter the stupid-looking face of the Elder Tyrant. The party works together, using a multitude of skills to eliminate its branches. However, Sophia explains that their attacks won't work, as the Elder Tyrant can regenerate despite their efforts. To defeat it, Takumi coats his sword in fire and delivers a decisive strike, while Sophia provides cover, finally felling the creature. The tree disappears and drops a miracle apple, a fruit so rare that hardly anyone gets to taste it. With their mission complete, they proceed to Horus. Upon arrival, they visit the Adventurers Guild, causing quite the commotion with Maple. The blacksmith points out a quest to eliminate mole monsters in the mines. These creatures devour ores, making them a serious threat. Accepting the quest grants them access to the mines. While mining, they quickly find mithril ore and adamantite, but their presence draws monster moles. Takumi blinds them with light magic, making them easy to defeat. Sophia and Maria are disappointed since this tactic denies them any real combat, making Maria feel useless. The mission is a success, and they return to Bolton a few days later. Back in Bolton, Takumi visits Digambo's shop to learn how to refine mithril ore, iron, salamander gallstones, and adamantite. After much effort, he succeeds in extracting the metals and begins crafting new gear. He enhances Maria and Sophia's armor with magic suited to their elements, making it both lighter and more durable. His own armor is imbued with Thunderclap, an extreme agility buff that allows him to move at incredible speed, though when he tries to show off, he immediately crashes into a wall. Finally, Takumi unveils their new weapons, showcasing the powerful enchantments he has placed on them. The girls like them, but Sophia still asks for a shield to be made so she can protect him. Takumi understands, but wants her to cherish her own life more. The goddess watches this scene fondly, but is worried, as the heroes in the Cydonia Empire will be ruthless when the time comes. After 1 year of training, the two boys no longer look like normal high schoolers, but bloodthirsty soldiers, giving off a more sinister vibe that the king approves of. In the heart of the kingdom of Barkula, the king reads the recent message from the Empire. Though the words are kind, the threat is clear. The Church of Divine Light sends a messenger to meet with the king of Barula after learning about the purification magic toilets used in the kingdom. The church formally, though perhaps more like tattling, appeals to the Pope in Cydonia, leading him to declare that purification magic is a divine gift that should be exclusive to the church. The king is utterly confused, asking what they actually want. As a result, they demand that the king of Barula hand over the patent for the purification magic circles, with all rights to the toilets going to the church. The king scoffs, reminding them that they can't even take it, as a gift from God doesn't come from them. The messenger is angered, but argues that since sacred purification was used, their claims are inexcusable. He then demands that they reveal the creator's identity and bring him to the Holy Empire of Cydonia. The king listens, but dismisses their demands as ridiculous, choosing to ignore them entirely. The church's messenger is shocked by the king's defiance and threatens to recall all church priests from their country. However, the king remains unfazed and even encourages them to leave. Takumi later hears about the king's decision from Papek, who is unsure whether it was the right move. However, he reassures Takumi that it's fine. Still, Takumi worries that outright rejecting the Church of Divine Light could lead to conflict. Papek reassures him, pointing out that the Church of Divine Light isn't the only religious institution. There's also the Church of Creation, which has a strong following in Barula. Takumi already knows of this, but Papek adds more details, including information about the god Anat. Unlike the Church of Divine Light, which charges hefty fees for holy magic, the Church of Creation provides healing to anyone in need. Given this, the Church of Divine Light's departure won't be much of a loss, as not many in Barula follow their religion. However, since the church is backed by Cydonia, Takumi realizes he should probably avoid them going forward. Papek then reveals the real reason for their meeting, to inform Takumi that the king was impressed with the toilet and refrigerator he presented earlier and has requested a meeting with him. Takumi is hesitant to meet someone as important as the king, but Papek assures him that it's optional. Papek really wants to go and encourages Takumi to accept. Eventually, Takumi agrees, and later that evening, he shares the news with Sophia and Maria, asking if they'd like to accompany him to the royal capital, Bakilatos. He feels obligated since the king has already protected him from Cydonia. Both are excited to go, so they plan to depart in a week, using the time to prepare for the journey. Since the trip will take 7 days, Maria focuses on food supplies, while Takumi works on making new cloaks for them using dark element magic stones from Papek. These cloaks will have perception-blocking enchantments, making them useful for combat and ensuring that Sophia and Maria won't attract unwanted attention in the capital. As Sophia and Maria go shopping, Maria comments that Takumi doesn't seem to value himself enough. Sophia agrees, listing what he has to his advantage: his good looks, alchemy skills, successful businessman, money, and impressive inventions. Maria, however, notices how enthusiastic Sophia is when praising Takumi and suspects she might have feelings for him. Sophia quickly denies it, claiming her admiration is purely that of a servant for her master, but Maria remains unconvinced. Meanwhile, Takumi visits a local church and kneels before a statue of the goddess Nolan to pray. Suddenly, light envelops him, and he finds himself in Nolan's domain. She warmly greets him, remarking that it's been a while since his last visit, and jokes that if he came to pray for safe travels, he should have brought her an offering. However, Takumi is there with questions. He first asks about the goddess Anat, whom the Church of Divine Light worships, wondering if another deity truly exists. Nolan firmly asserts that she is the only real goddess, but refuses to elaborate on Anat's nature, saying Takumi will learn the truth in due time. But he can tell she wants his full attention. Takumi then asks about the other heroes who were summoned with him. It's been 10 months since his arrival, yet he has heard nothing about them. Nolan finally admits that when she summoned him, she altered time, sending him 1 year into the past. The other heroes haven't been summoned yet. They will appear in a few months. Confused, Takumi asks why she went the trouble of sending him back in time, but before he can get an answer, Nolan cuts the conversation short, saying his time is up. She also requests sweets as an offering next time, before playfully knocking him back down to the mortal world. Takumi wakes up on the church floor, suspecting that Nolan was intentionally avoiding his questions about the heroes. He then returns home to finish the cloaks for Sophia and Maria. Sophia feels embarrassed to receive a matching cloak to Takumi as she feels it's a bit forward, being shy. Both love the designs, which makes Takumi happy, but he still has another project in mind. He takes them to his workshop, revealing his plan to build a carriage for their frequent travels rather than borrowing one each time. However, while he can construct the carriage, he doesn't have a horse, so he'll need to borrow one from the guild. Maria chuckles as she knows something Takumi doesn't. She suggests an alternative. They could tame a creature from the Forest of Death outside Bolton, where they might find a unicorn or a drake horse, both significantly faster than regular monster horses. Excited about the idea, Maria insists they go hunting for one. During their search, Takumi asks Sophia if Drake horses are much better than the guild's monster horses. She confirms that Drake horses possess superior speed, stamina, and durability. They resemble normal horses but have a large horn and dragon-like scales. As they continue, a bush wolf suddenly runs out at them, and they ready their weapons, but instead of attacking it, runs past them. Takumi is glad to see his cloaks work at such a high level it can deceive the noise of the wolf. Knowing this, Sophia and Maria opt to take them off so they can get combat training. As they continue through the forest, Maple notices an abundance of dead trees and wonders what caused it. Maple tries to get the party moving towards the Drake horse, but they're more interested in playing Minecraft. Eventually, she stumbles upon an injured Drake, which immediately reacts with a lightning attack, though Maple realizes it's simply scared. Relating to its fear, having once been in the same situation before Takumi found her, she reassures the Drake that her master is kind and will heal it. However, before they can wait peacefully, two termite-like monsters appear, seemingly the ones responsible for the Drake's injuries. Maple swiftly captures them in her webs and throws them in front of the Drake to be electrocuted. However, more termites emerge, posing a real threat. To protect herself and the Drake, Maple weaves a barrier out of her silk, buying time. She tries calling out to Takumi for help, but he doesn't respond, making her fear he got too distracted by gathering wood. As the termites tear through the barrier, she closes her eyes, expecting the worst, only to open them and find Takumi standing over her. Overwhelmed with relief, she jumps into his arms, having been terrified when he didn't respond. Takumi explains that her barrier was so well made that it blocked mana signals, preventing her call from reaching him. However, as soon as he noticed her signal was gone, he rushed to her last known location. Noticing the injured Drake behind Maple, Takumi attempts to heal it, but the creature recoils, still distrustful. Sophia warns that they should leave soon, as more termites may appear, but abandoning the Drake means certain death for it. Determined to help, Takumi puts the injured Maple and horse in his item box. Sophia is worried by his actions, as putting a non-familiar in the item box will put a heavy strain on his body. The anime then tries to make it seem like he's about to die as he passes out, unable to drink his mana potion. In his bed, Sophia explains that by the second the horse is in storage, Takumi will slowly wither away as more mana is being taken from him. Sophia knows she must do something, so she kisses his hand, managing to reach Maple with the power of her mana and telling the girl to make a similar barrier to the one she did in the forest with her web. This will somehow create a space-time portal for them to escape. The process takes a while as Sophia stays by Takumi's bedside all day, with him waking up to the sight of her. The two go to reunite with Maple, and Takumi goes to see the horse, where he makes a contract with her, naming her Camellia. A shy, timid beast girl named Reva is meeting with a potential master. The client is impressed by her magical talent, but asks if she can use any practical spells. Reva admits that she hasn't learned any useful ones yet, but promises to work hard to become useful to him. However, the man cuts her off and declines to purchase, explaining that he needs someone who can assist him immediately rather than waiting for her to train. Still, he acknowledges her uniqueness and wishes her luck in finding a master. After he leaves, Reva apologizes to Bolton for yet another rejection, but he reassures her that the right master will come along eventually. Though she tries to stay hopeful, years have passed and she has yet to find a master. She reflects on her past, remembering her younger brother and how she had to sell herself to support her family. Despite her sacrifices, she has yet to earn a single cent as she's studied magic. Meanwhile, at Takumi's house, he is tirelessly working on finishing his carriage, worrying Maria and Sophia. Sophia asks Takumi if he plans to return to Gambo's workshop that day, and he confirms it, as there's still a lot of blacksmithing work left before their trip. Sophia expresses concern over how much Takumi has been overworking himself, between finishing the carriage, making potions, and crafting refrigerators for Papek. He hasn't taken a break in days. She fears he might push himself to exhaustion. Though Takumi appreciates their concern, he assures them he's fine and sets off as planned. Upon arriving at the guild, Takumi overhears a man desperately trying to convince the guildmaster that he has seen something terrifying. Curious, Takumi asks Hans, the guild receptionist, what's going on. Hans explains that there have been multiple sightings of a strange creature outside the city. When Takumi asks for details, Hans shows him a sketch based on eyewitness descriptions, but even then the creature's identity remains unclear. Since no harm has been reported, Hans isn't too worried. He then asks Takumi why he came to the guild, and Takumi explains that he wants to register a new pet. Given Takumi's history, Hans expects it to be something bizarre, but when Takumi pulls Camila out of his pocket dimension, Hans is horrified. The boy quickly realizes that Camila is the very monster causing all the panic. The guildmaster immediately drags Takumi into a meeting to scold him until he begs for mercy. Elsewhere, Sophia meets with Mulan, hoping to find a magically skilled servant to assist Takumi. Unfortunately, Mulan doesn't have anyone that fits the criteria, but suggests checking other servant trading companies. Mulan then gossips about Sophia's change in demeanor, noting that she seems much happier with Takumi. On her way home, Sophia runs into Maria, who is out shopping for lunch ingredients. Maria has noticed Takumi's exhaustion and wants to cheer him up with a good meal. However, when they arrive at Gambo's workshop to check on him, they find Takumi passed out in a pile of wood. Initially alarmed, Gambo reassures them that Takumi just fell asleep while working, completely worn out from his non-stop efforts. Though he seems fine for now, Gambo warns them that if Takumi doesn't slow down, he could work himself to death. After waking up from his nap, Takumi finally completes the carriage. He's proud of his creation, and rightfully so. It defies physics. While it appears to be a normal carriage from the outside, the interior is the size of a house. Sophia and Maria frantically ask how this is even possible. Takumi has used enchanted spatial magic to expand the space inside and included various comforts to make long trips more enjoyable. It has a toilet, kitchen, and bed. The group takes it for a test drive, with Maria eagerly taking the reins. Despite its high speed, the ride is incredibly smooth, eliminating any risk of motion sickness. With some time left before their scheduled departure, Takumi tells Maria she can suggest additional features for the carriage. Amused, she asks for deadly spikes on the sides, purely for style. While Takumi acknowledges her suggestion, he immediately dismisses it. The driving boosted the horses' stats, but annoyed the townspeople. A few days later, the group prepares to set out on their journey. At the city gates, they meet Lion's Fong, their escort to the capital. Popek and the others soon arrive, and with everyone gathered, they're ready to depart. Before leaving, Popek is curious to see Takumi's carriage and asks for a look inside. Takumi agrees, and the moment Popek steps in, he is completely blown away by the spacious interior. He bombards Takumi with questions about how he managed such a feat, and even offers a fortune for the knowledge. However, before he can press further, Lord Godwin stops him, not wanting to make Takumi uncomfortable. That doesn't stop Godwin himself from loudly proclaiming how much he would love a carriage like Takumi's. While he isn't outright ordering Takumi to build one, he subtly hints that if Takumi were to gift him one, he would be grateful enough to pay 100 platinum coins, a sum equivalent to roughly 1 billion yen. As the journey continues, Godwin discusses with his assistant how invaluable Takumi has become to the kingdom. Though they will do their best to protect him, his growing reputation is bound to attract unwanted attention, especially from the Empire of Sidonia, as he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, a round 1 first overall pick level. Meanwhile, in the Empire of Sidonia, Akane studies an old history book to learn more about their culture. The book explains that Sidonia's goddess created humanity in her image, then crafted beastmen from animals and elves from plants, all to serve mankind. This ideology justifies the Empire's poor treatment of beastmen, which Akane finds unbearable. She hates the collar put on them. Back in the present, Takumi and his group arrive safely at the capital, thanks to his party effortlessly wiping out any monsters along the way. Their supposed bodyguards, Lion's Fong, barely had to lift a finger, yet they get an easy payday. Once they check into an inn, Popek pulls Takumi aside for a discussion. He wants to gift the king a carriage similar to the one Takumi built, believing it would showcase his craftsmanship. Since their royal audience is only 5 days away, Popek assumes there isn't enough time to build one, but Takumi surprises him by saying he can complete it before then. Transporting a finished carriage from home would be a hassle, so he decides to build it right there in the capital. The only issue is finding a proper workspace, but Popek has already arranged for Takumi to use an old building owned by the Palum Company. Later, Takumi informs Maria and Sophia about Popek's plan. Sophia, already familiar with the Palom company, reassures him that it's a reputable servant trading business. Popek secures permission for Takumi to work there, and as soon as the materials arrive, he intends to begin construction. However, Sophia firmly insists that Takumi get an assistant. He nearly worked himself to death on the last carriage, and now he's about to do it again without taking a break. Even a workaholic like him has to acknowledge that this is reckless. Takumi sees that Maria and Sophia are genuinely concerned, so he agrees to get some help, though it takes a lot of convincing. The next day, Takumi meets with the Palom company's owner, explaining that he needs a servant with magical aptitude to assist with his alchemy. Meanwhile, outside, Maria rushes up to Sophia in a panic. Maple has gone missing. Maple had mentioned wanting to explore the Palom building, and if anyone spots a giant spider roaming the halls, chaos will ensue. Sophia quickly goes to find Maple, but by the time she does, Maple has already scared the life out of Reva, who was just trying to read her book in peace. Maple apologizes, and Sophia helps a shaken Reva to her feet. However, as she does, she notices something unusual about the Beast Girl. Sophia leaves to be by Takumi's side, and soon Reva comes to the meeting to greet him. While Takumi is discussing her role, Reva is thinking about how she must be hired this time. She needs to help her family. Traumatized by her recent failure, she gets lost in thought, but Takumi brings her back by asking if she likes alchemy. She admits that she does and is eager to dive into the topic, but she isn't confident. Sophia notices her struggle and helps her out, recalling one of Takumi's books, which both she and Reva are fans of. With both Sophia and the master feeling like third wheels on their date, Takumi gives Reva a diagram and asks her to identify everything on it. She does well at first, but starts to panic, ultimately breaking into tears, afraid of rejection. Takumi comforts her and decides to hire her. After the contract is done, Reva asks for all her wages to be sent back home. Her family lives in a poor village, and she wants her brother to go to school and get a good job to make life easier for their mother. Sophia reassures Reva that Takumi is a good boss and that she'll be happy with them. At the stables, Maria and Maple warmly greet the newbie. At the same time in the story, the Empire hasn't yet summoned the heroes. The king has recently received the news that they won't give them the craftsmen behind the toilets, which angers him and makes him ready to attack. However, his daughter, Elizabeth, asks him to wait until they have the 3 heroes. Still, the king doesn't want to just sit and wait, so Elizabeth suggests they use this time to build a mob of their angry followers. In a very Danzo-like fashion, they choose Takumi. Takumi uses a spell to craft the outline of the carriage, and Reva admires his work, noticing the intricate magic patterns. She doubts her ability to replicate such alchemy, but Takumi has unwavering confidence in her. Meanwhile, Sophia watches them fondly, like an older sister. With Reva's help, Takumi eventually completes the carriage and admires his work. An old man approaches, asking if the carriage belongs to him. Takumi explains that he built it, but is gifting it to the king. The old man is shocked that a 17-year-old created such an impressive carriage. Just then, Takumi's companions rush over, addressing the old man as the king. Takumi is mortified, realizing he had spoken so casually to royalty. However, the king reassures him that formalities aren't necessary in this informal meeting, as he dislikes official gatherings. Originally, the meeting was supposed to be in the reception room, but the king does as he pleases. He wanted to personally meet the famous alchemist and thank Takumi for his contributions, particularly for inventing the toilets that solved the kingdom's sewage crisis. Normally, such an achievement would warrant a grand banquet with rewards and titles, but since Takumi prefers to stay anonymous to avoid Sidonia's attention, the king respects his wishes. Still, he grants Takumi a reward for his invention. Takumi thanks the king for protecting him from Sidonia, and the king responds that it's only natural to protect his people. As Takumi and his group depart, the king watches from his window and orders his attendants to keep Takumi's visit a secret. However, he acknowledges that once Takumi's creations are exported beyond Barula, Sidonia will inevitably take action against him. Back in Bolton, Takumi officially buys the mansion he had been renting from Popek. He gathers his servants to discuss their wages, only to be shocked when Maria and Sophia refuse payment. Maria insists that the food and allowance he provides are more than enough, while Sophia sees no need for a salary. Reva finds it amusing that Takumi has to argue just to convince them to accept wages, reminding them to save up for when their contract with him ends. But Sophia remains adamant, saying that even after his death, she intends to watch over his grave for the rest of her life. Maria adds that she would like to be buried next to him, calling it perfect. Meanwhile, in the Empire of Sidonia, one of the princess's spies acquires one of Takumi's purification devices. The princess is outraged, questioning whether they fear the wrath of their god, Anat. She finds it blasphemous that someone would dare replicate holy magic instead of paying the church for its use. Tracing the devices back to Bolton, she orders a small unit to destroy their source, declaring that such disrespect toward the Pope and Anat will not be tolerated. Back at Takumi's house, Reva unexpectedly asks to register as an adventurer. Though surprised, Takumi understands her reasoning. Becoming an adventurer will enhance her stats and increase her mana, aiding in more advanced alchemy. He agrees, and they head to the guild, where Reva gets her guild card and officially joins Takumi's party, with her earnings being sent back to her family. Hans then pressures Takumi to name his party, as they are already one of the guild's top groups. However, Takumi sees no need for a name, considering he never wanted to be an adventurer in the first place. His team also lacks defined roles and a frontline fighter. While he could train to fill that role, he has little interest in combat. Out of nowhere, Barak appears and declares his intent to train Takumi into the best frontliner, completely ignoring Takumi's reluctance. He proceeds to throw Takumi around the training grounds, demanding he come up with a party name. Unfortunately, the only names Takumi can think of are toilet-themed, earning him even more punishment. Why does this party only think about going to the bathroom? Certified weirdos. At home, even Maria's suggestions are rejected for being terrible, like Mr. Takumi and his servants. Reva's ideas aren't any better, as they sound more like title credits than actual party names. Sophia, witnessing the ordeal, is furious and prepares to attack Barak, but Takumi stops her, admitting that while painful, the training has significantly boosted his combat stats. 10 months after being summoned, the other heroes continue their training. Yamato has become strong enough to overpower his instructor, while Akira mocks him, claiming his aggressive fighting style wouldn't work in real combat. Akane points out that Akira's own style is just as aggressive, but Akira arrogantly claims that, as the protagonist, he is naturally superior. She reminds him that she and Yamato are also called heroes. When he invites Akane to his room for special training, she ignores him. He then says it's fine if his furry attendant watches. Lately, Akane has noticed a concerning change in both Yamato and Akira, and suspects that something is off about Sidonia and its goddess. Her research into the Church of Divine Light reveals its doctrine of human supremacy and the enslavement of demi-humans, contrasting with the Church of Creation, which promotes equality. This makes her uneasy about the true purpose behind their summoning, as it's obvious the Church is trying to manipulate them. Back in Bolton, Takumi gifts Reva a ring and a staff to assist her in adventuring. The staff, made from Trant wood and mithyl alloy, impresses her, but Maple grows jealous since Takumi rarely crafts weapons for her. However, Takumi surprises her with a custom weapon, which Reva helped him make, making Maple happy. The next day, Takumi resumes training with Barak, hoping to come up with a party name to escape further punishment. His best attempt, Cat's Claw, is dismissed as a ripoff of Lion's Fang, earning him another round of painful training. Even Maria's attempt at naming is so bad that Barak physically rejects it. Takumi braces for Sophia's rage against Barak, but to his surprise, she's yelling at him to adjust his fighting style. Watching the training, Sophia realizes that Takumi is indeed weak in hand-to-hand combat, so she now supports Barak's efforts. After hours of grueling training, Takumi finally gets a break, only for Hans to offer him an escort mission so he can rank up. Though reluctant, Takumi is convinced by Barak and his team to accept. The journey to Kilbus is brief, thanks to Takumi's carriage and Camellia. The merchant they escort feels safer with them and plans to sell basic necessities, including the purification devices, while also buying milk per Papek's request. Takumi is shocked to learn that milk exists in this world, as he has never seen it in Bolton. He is excited about the discovery, especially after hearing that Kilbus also has cheese. On the way there, some monsters block their path, but Camellia's lightning makes quick work of them. Upon arrival, Takumi and his team try cream stew for the first time. They find it delicious, but Takumi believes he can improve the recipe. He decides to stock up on cheese and milk before heading home. That night, as they sit around a fire tasting the dairy products, Takumi reflects on his past life in Japan. However, he feels no longing for his old world. His current life is far more fulfilling. Curious, he asks about rice, but Sophia doesn't know of it. Instead, she mentions a grain sold in the land of Salamander, available in the royal capital. This realization makes Takumi a bit sad. He should have bought some while he had the chance. Noticing his introspection, Sophia asks if something is wrong. Takumi then asks if she ever thinks about returning to her hometown. Sophia, who had spent 50 years trapped by a curse, has no interest in her past. She is grateful for her new life with Takumi and the others, and the rest of the party shares her sentiment. Takumi understands their feelings. Ever since arriving in this world, he has truly taken flight in life. Thinking of the person who gave him this opportunity, he finally knows what the party's name should be: Wings of Nolan. Everyone agrees on the name. 3 days later, upon returning home, Takumi is met with an ominous sight, a red fog. Immediately recognizing it as paralysis poison, he covers his nose just in time. A voice orders him not to move. His party has already been captured. A masked man lunges at him with a dagger, but Takumi blocks and pushes him back with Maple's help. Together, they overpower the assailant. Wasting no time, Takumi administers the antidote to his party. Once they're cured, Maple asks what to do with the people outside. Outside, she has already wrapped several attackers in cocoons. Examining the scene, Takumi determines that these men were well trained and must have been hired for this mission. He orders Sophia to fetch Barak, while the guild arrives to arrest the men. He is also advised to inform the local lord of the attack. In the conference room of the local lord, his knight informs Takumi about the recent incident. The Divine Light Squadron is essentially an elite task force deployed by Sidonia to eliminate individuals deemed threats to the Church of Divine Light. Takumi is horrified to learn that Sidonia is actively trying to kill him. He is informed by Barak that the reason behind the assassination attempt is the purification devices he previously invented. In the past, the kingdom relied on priests to purify the sewers using holy magic. While the Church of Creation offered this service for free, the Church of Divine Light charged hefty fees. However, with Takumi's invention, the need for priests has been eliminated, causing a massive loss of revenue for the Church of Divine Light. Takumi considers going into hiding or fleeing the country, but he is advised to stay in Bolton, where the Church of Creation has a strong following, making it difficult for the Church of Divine Light to exert its influence. As a precaution, security in the city will be tightened with increased night and city guard patrols to prevent further assassination attempts. While this ensures the city's safety, Barak expresses concern about Takumi's protection during his adventuring missions. Takumi, given the circumstances, decides to put his adventuring on hold, but Barak strongly objects, arguing that Takumi's party is one of the guild's top 5 and that his absence would negatively impact the guild's performance. Sophia also insists on continuing to adventure with him, vowing to protect him even at the cost of her life. Unable to refuse them, Takumi reluctantly agrees to keep adventuring. On their way back to the guild, Takumi reflects on the danger Sidonia poses to his life and the fact that his friends were put at risk because of him. He realizes he must take action to ensure their safety. Upon arriving at the guild, Takumi and Sophia register their party name, but before they leave, Hans warns Takumi that rumors of the attack on him are spreading and that there's talk of a significant bounty on his head. This means some adventurers may attempt to attack him, prompting Hans to tell him to be careful. Later that night, Takumi informs his companions of the worsening situation. He apologizes for putting them in danger, but his companions reassure him that they simply let their guard down and that it won't happen again. While Takumi is grateful for their support, he remains concerned and decides to create a magical device to generate a barrier around his house for protection. However, he still worries about their safety during adventures. Sophia suggests they recruit a tank for their party, and Takumi agrees, though he isn't sure where to find one. With all of the girls saying they don't want any men, Takumi's sweat drops from their reaction. Sophia points out that many solo adventurers might be available, but since trust is an issue, Takumi considers acquiring a servant instead. As night falls, the knights stand guard outside the mansion, while Takumi stays up working on the barrier device. The next morning, he enlists Reva's help with alchemy, but Sophia also asks to join so she can help manage the house. He informs Sophia of what they're doing, explaining that she needs to draw magic circles on the sheets. As they work, Sophia brings up that Takumi hasn't slept much last night. He admits that he stayed up all night thinking about defensive measures. Meanwhile, Maple is training with Camellia, practicing powerful attacks against dummy golems. This reminds Reva that golems fall under alchemy. This gives Reva the idea that a golem would be the perfect tank for their party. However, constructing one requires engraving complex magic circles into its control core, something beyond his current abilities. He realizes he needs to significantly improve his mana manipulation skill before attempting golem creation. As he completes the barrier device, he suddenly receives a notification that his mana manipulation skill has maxed out and evolved into spell control, meaning he might be able to attempt golem creation after all. Meanwhile, in Sidonia, the king is informed that the Divine Light Squadron has not only failed in their mission, but has also been captured. This means the Kingdom of Barula has likely interrogated them and discovered Sidonia's involvement, making the situation far more complicated than expected. Elizabeth advises the king to halt further attacks on Barula and instead focus on their ongoing mission related to the Summoning Circle. Homer reports that while he has been unable to fully analyze the ancient magic circles they found, they appear to be functional. The summoning should be ready in about 2 months, at which point they can summon their heroes. Back at Takumi's home, his first attempt at a golem is a complete failure. The complexity of multi-layered magic circles proves too challenging, and he realizes he needs further skill development. Maple questions why he even wants a golem when he already has them as allies, but Takumi insists that having a golem to guard their home while they are away would be useful. Maple then suggests taming a natural golem instead, which Takumi thinks to be a brilliant idea. Sophia informs Takumi that reports indicate stone golems appear in the Forest of Death, and iron golems can sometimes be found inside dungeons. Takumi is surprised to learn that dungeons exist in this world, but quickly makes up an excuse for his lack of knowledge. Despite his eagerness to enter a dungeon, Sophia warns that it would be reckless without a tank, so instead they head to the rock flats in search of a rock golem. Upon encountering a golem, they realize it is much larger than expected. Sophia identifies it as a Guardian-class golem, which requires attacking its magic stone to defeat. However, Takumi doesn't want to destroy it. The golem suddenly scans the area, prompting Takumi and Sophia to hide. Concerned that the golem may be too powerful to tame, Sophia suggests looking for another one. However, Takumi believes that such a strong golem would be perfect for defending his home. Trusting his instincts, he approaches the golem, feeling a familiar energy, similar to Nolan's, radiating from it. Realizing the golem might have been created to guard one of Nolan's ancient ruins, Takumi assumes the blessing Nolan granted him should allow him to communicate with it. Taking a risk, he stretches out his arm and successfully tames the golem without a fight. His companions are impressed. Maple asks what he plans to name it, and after some thought, he decides on Titan. As they prepare to return home, Sophia points out that bringing a massive golem into town would cause a commotion. Before Takumi can store Titan in his pocket dimension, the golem unexpectedly shrinks into a smaller rock form, making it easier to transport. Takumi promises to upgrade Titan's body as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the future, Akane watches as her friend continues to grow stronger and more ruthless. They are now powerful enough to defeat the entire night squad of the castle, taking pleasure in mocking their weakness, including the man who taught them. She is forced to watch them indulge themselves with the women of the capital. She questions their activities, and Akira calls her a bit late to be jealous. Yamata adds that she can come entertain him instead, but she simply leaves, calling them scumbags. Back at home, Takumi immediately begins designing a new body for Titan, excited about the possibilities. However, before proceeding, he calls a meeting with his companions and announces his decision to dissolve all their contracts. The girls are shocked and demand an explanation. Sophia demands to know for how long. Takumi explains that he had planned to do this ever since the first attack. He says that the horse and spider are his pets, so naturally they'd stay with him. But the three of them are different. They should have the freedom to choose how to live their lives. He offers to pay them to help get started on their new paths. Sophia refuses to sign the contract, but it doesn't work, so Maria takes a more direct approach. She cries, accusing him of always putting them first and never thinking of his own safety. Sophia then speaks to him, saying that while his decision might have come from concern for them, it ended up being the cruelest thing he could have said. He apologizes, blaming it on his lack of emotional awareness. The group makes up, and they agree to stay together. Later, Titan is given an armored suit that is so shiny it could blind you. Titan brings Takumi joy as she speaks like a robot and has all the abilities of a mecha, capable of combining with an even bigger mecha. In Nolan's realm, she watches the boy mess around, but is soon informed about the situation with the Empire by her attendant. Anat isn't a god, but due to the people's belief, she has now become an evil spirit with real power. Since she can't directly interfere, she gave Takumi her blessing and set him up to stop the scumbag heroes. 1 year ago, due to the reckless actions of the nobles, Moni lost her husband, and the village was abandoned, with the villagers told to leave. This made them grow distrustful of the nobility, as hundreds of them lost their homes and loved ones, while the same nobles fled to neighboring countries. The villagers vowed to never trust rich people again, talking about how Moni's husband was worked to his death by the nobles and wasn't even respected in death. She questions her entire life, asking what the point was. A year after the incident, Bolton is reviewing the situation and learns that a noble named Rockford had been supporting the 1,000 refugees, but can no longer afford to care for them. So he abandoned them, an action that Doron finds irredeemable. Bolton agrees, but deems they can't do anything about it. Rockford requested help finding them a new home, but there's only one piece of land large enough. The butler points to the spot on the map, and it's plagued by monsters. Developing the area seems nearly impossible, so the Lord asks Takumi for assistance, as only he is known for pulling off miracles. Meanwhile, Takumi and his group are preparing to explore the Forest of the Beast King, the second most dangerous dungeon in the kingdom. Despite its underground location, it resembles a forest, and the monsters are much stronger than those on the surface. It's the best place to train, as there's a constant supply of monsters. With Maple as the scout and Titan absorbing the big hits, they easily defeat the floor bosses, with everyone getting a turn, and claim the loot, a box of treasure. After a full day of exploration, they reach the final boss room, and sure enough, the final boss appears, an S-rank rock dragon. Takumi regrets not bringing the Titan mech, but he orders everyone to run. They need to stop the dragon's tail from moving before they can attack. Titan holds the tail while Maple uses webs to pin it down, and Sophia attacks the midsection. Takumi then brings out Camila, who strikes the dragon's abdomen, dealing significant damage. He realizes he can finish it off by enchanting his sword and throwing it into the dragon's mouth, defeating it and leaving behind a treasure chest. Takumi finds a dragon scale, which he plans to craft into something valuable. Back in Bolton, Takumi is summoned by Marcus Godwin, who asks if he's familiar with the uninhabited land south of the region. Takumi recalls that it's a dangerous area with many monsters. The assistant Saluvis informs him that it was previously invaded by the kingdom of Triaria, but the invasion failed. Takumi knows the place is full of mithril and adamantite, and hearing that Takumi is already interested, Godwin jumps at the opportunity. Godwin wants Takumi to build a village there, as he already knows about what Takumi did for the small town of Board in a matter of minutes, so he believes Takumi can do it. Saluvis states that there is a water source nearby, advising him to build around it. Sophia questions the Lord, as he knows of Takumi's recent situation and still wants him to be at risk for this project. Takumi agrees. Godwin explains that the development of a pioneer village was halted due to corrupt nobles, leaving 1,000 refugees homeless. Takumi feels compelled to help, as he was once without a home, just like the refugees. Sophia wants to know his motives, but Takumi stops her. The reason he's doing this is to return the favor to the people of Board who welcomed him with open arms last year. Takumi sets out with his party and turns down the escort of knights. He creates a concrete wall for merchants to come and go, cuts down the trees, then builds a large, sturdy wall. He reinforces it with a deep moat, develops a road for travel inside, includes an aqueduct for water, and starts building houses. He then tells Sophia to go back, as they're ready to receive the citizens, a feat none of them thought possible in just 10 days. The refugees, initially skeptical, knowing the area is full of monsters, think they're being used to construct a village before they die. They're told that a man from Bolton is in charge and assume he's another greedy noble. When they reach the gate, Doron is speechless upon seeing such an amazingly built city, which looks like a close replica of the capital. Takumi casually greets him, saying he has time to start building farms too. Doron can't help but ask what Takumi is on, as he has created a full civilization and doesn't think it's a big deal. Takumi just says he had time and has an uncontrollable imagination. Doron thanks him, but still has to question how. While the villagers now appreciate the village, Moni remains unhappy. Sophia approaches Moni and offers her condolences for her loss, suggesting that she help with Takumi's needs. Hearing that she would be taking care of the man who built the village, Moni asks what that means. Sophia says things such as cooking and is ready to take her to meet the master. Later, inside her house, Takumi speaks with her, ready to pay her a big wage later. Moni refuses, still harboring distrust toward Takumi. As she walks away, she deems that she can't live here, as she's sure the man has his eye on her. Still, even if he's not after her body, she thinks it's best to leave, even though she knows she's just frustrated and wanted to lash out. But the moment she steps away from the village, she's reminded where she is, encountering a horde of monsters. As she thinks about what she said, Maple hops through a portal to inform Takumi that a large number of monsters are outside. The villagers gossip about the monster attack, thinking the knights will force them out to fight. He informs the knight captain to have the drawbridges raised, ensuring the villagers are safe inside. Moni runs back to the village for safety, but sees it's too late, realizing she's locked out. The villagers make a fuss as one of her friends realizes that Moni is outside the walls. Hearing this, he tells the captain he won't allow a single villager to be harmed. With the help of Titan, the party leaves. She believes she was meant to die here as two bush wolves corner her, but at the last second, Takumi swoops in, rescuing her just in time and killing the wolves. Moni sees that he risked his life for her and was even injured. She bandages his wound. Moni, now realizing her mistake, apologizes, then she's captivated by his words of wanting all the villagers to live happy lives. She then asks to be hired as his maid. Later, the knight captain reports back to Godwin, impressed by the village's rapid construction. However, Godwin wonders if the village will be enough to help in the conflict with Sidonia, as he intends to use it as a wedge to keep the empire away from his land. In Sidonia, the king learns of the fortress and that it has knights stationed there. He's irritated. Elizabeth reassures him, and the summoning circle they've been working on finally gathers enough mana to summon the heroes. As the summoning is carried out, an ominous feeling washes over Takumi and his party. Sophia has a bad feeling about this, with Takumi knowing what this means as the other heroes have arrived, and things are about to get worse. The Empire's heroes gather around Elizabeth as it's time to show them off to the entire continent. Both of the boys are as arrogant as ever, ready to show off the power of the Holy Empire. Akira mocks that Akane doesn't seem pleased, but she puts on an act of being eager to go show off too. Meanwhile, in Takumi's village, now called Wedge Fort, it is thriving with merchants and craftsmen. Takumi's new village has villagers working on the farms. In the forest, Sophia is out fighting a batch of monsters. Inside their temporary base, they discuss how the monsters are growing stronger. Maria is concerned, but Sophia mentions that new species are popping up. She suspects that these creatures are being driven out of their habitats by something, possibly linked to the strange fluctuation they felt 3 months ago, which might have affected the monsters. Takumi recalls Nolan's warning about the summoned heroes and remains cautious, though uncertain about what to expect. That evening, the knight captain informs Takumi that Barak has a quest for him, and Takumi agrees to return. While discussing recent events, the knight mentions rumors about 3 new heroes in Sidonia. At dinner, they question why the heroes were summoned. Maria believes that they were summoned to correct Sidonia's wrongdoings, but Takumi knows better. They're still as corrupt as before, as they used forbidden magic to accomplish it. He can only hope the summoned heroes are decent, but it turns out they are far from it. Akira and Yamato are selfish and immoral. As the heroes prepare to leave, Yamato asks if that thing is coming with them. Beast Girl apologizes, but Yamato yells at her, not allowing her to speak. Akane yells at him, saying she's her attendant, and Akira dismisses demi-humans as servants. Elizabeth and the king pray for the hero's success, with the evil spirit gaining power. Back in Bolton, Takumi learns from Hans that the 3 summoned heroes are 2 boys and 1 girl, all with black hair, leading Takumi to believe they are from Japan, like him. The heroes are supposedly on an expedition to visit churches, but Hans suspects they have a hidden agenda to destroy them. Takumi also accepts a request to escort Papek to the royal capital. Moni asks to join the mission, but Takumi is hesitant due to the dangers. Moni finds it lonely in such a big house. Maria overhears this while doing laundry, understanding where Moni is coming from, as she was previously in the same position. She's able to convince him, as she and Reva will keep her safe. Not to mention, he's unable to combat such a cute expression from the older woman. As the heroes travel to Barkula, Akira and Yamato complain about the bumpy carriage ride, wishing they could invent cars already. Then Akira looks at Akane, discussing the possibility of taking back some elves with them, as they hear that the royal capital has them. The two are told they couldn't, but they dismiss the comment, thinking they should feel overjoyed to be taken in as servants for them. Akane just ignores the disgusting comments about how they plan to get laid, as she plans to find something in the royal capital to help her in this situation. By using her revelation skill, she's sure something good can come from her trip. In the capital, Takumi completes his escort mission, with Takumi and Sophia being promoted to A-rank adventurers, and Moni being promoted to D-rank. The heroes arrive, causing a scene in the guild as they order people to move. Akira then punches a man in the stomach, exclaiming that they are heroes, and this is the punishment for talking to their betters. The two then get a good look at Sophia, with Akira wanting the elf, while Yamato is interested in the sexy bunny girl. Akira yells to Takumi, asking him to name his price. Takumi just denies such remarks, which rubs them the wrong way. The 2 boys won't take a refusal, like this, of course, with the two women refusing. Takumi knows where this is going to go, but he still has to ask them to leave one last time. Akira demands it and attacks with his sword, but Takumi was built to counter them as he uses decomposition, breaking the sword. Then, he flatly overpowers Yamato. He's literally built to counter them. Akira is saddened by the loss of his holy sword, with Takumi reminding him it's just a normal sword made from iron. Akira, humiliated, vows revenge, but Takumi warns him of the consequences. To attack someone in the guild is a serious crime, with the other adventurers ready to jump in. Feeling cornered, they leave, saying they just made an enemy of the Empire. Akane apologizes for the behavior of her fellow heroes, but Takumi assures her there's no need as she did nothing wrong. She introduces herself, and the two realize their connection to Japan. She wants to talk, but he stops her. He whispers in her ear like he's spitting game, and tells her to meet him at the hotel by the lake. Later, the party is made aware of how terrible the heroes are. Moni realizes that she and Sophia's cheeks were in danger. But then Sophia remarks how at least the woman with them seemed decent. He informs them of the potential guest, and they prepare. At the same time, Akane sneaks away from her Sidonian guards to talk to Takumi. She had to take Lulu with her, otherwise she could be killed. But she's spotted, and Sophia helps by knocking out one of the guards. At the hotel, Akane admits her suspicions and asks Takumi if he's Japanese. Takumi confirms it, with Akane finding it hard to believe, as his face and hair are different, explaining that his mission is connected to the hero's summoning. Sophia doesn't understand, and he doesn't see a point in hiding it. He reveals his backstory to his companions, who understand the situation and agree to keep it a secret. They accept it rather easily, with the others asking if he's an emissary for the goddess. Akane asks if Takumi thinks Sidonia plans to use the heroes to start a war, but Takumi believes the heroes aren't strong enough for that, and thinks they will be used to incite chaos rather than directly engage in war, as the masses would follow them, and Sidonia, meaning their religion, would spread. Akane apologizes for getting him involved, but Takumi reassures her that it's not her fault, as they both were dragged into this life. He then questions why only she still acts sane. Akira says that ever since they arrived in Sidonia, the two of them changed. Sophia thinks she's talking about them being brainwashed. Akane never trusted the Empire and kept her distance, always casting purification magic on anything she ate or drank. While she focused on magic, the two of them focused on swordsmanship. Akane begs Takumi to save the two of them. He goes to stop her from kneeling. The girl has been stressed for months, waiting for a chance to escape. He notices Lulu's collar and removes it. Takumi agrees, suggesting they return to his mansion in Bolton. On the way back, Maria prepares a meal for Akane, who is touched by the kindness. Meanwhile, at Wedge Fort, a guard notices a monster stampede in the forest and sounds the alarm. At Takumi's mansion, he gathers the girls and announces that he is dissolving their servant contracts. They are heartbroken at first, but Takumi reassures them that he doesn't want them bound by contracts anymore. He wants them to be equal partners and a true family. Moni also steps forward as she didn't have a contract with him but felt left out. With this, they are on equal terms. After dissolving the contracts, Takumi receives an emergency notice about Wedge Fort. He's shocked by the severity of the situation, and the episode ends on a cliffhanger, with Takumi preparing to take action.